Hello guys, so we're back, and last time on the last video we left it at the point where we had set up the index page and we had some items on the screen to show how some HTML elements will display on the browser, how will they render, and I did mess around with the style sheet and just basically making this H1 tag here, welcome to my page, in red. And basically that was all that we did, and the integration of the style CSS. And I left as a homework for the last tutorial that you will be able to integrate Bootstrap on your own on the page. So I'm confident that you guys were able to do this, and it was a fairly easy homework, especially since I had already done it for you for the style sheet and the JavaScript right here, the main JavaScript. So I'm pretty confident you guys did it, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that myself now and show you in case you couldn't figure it out. So if I'm just gonna bring one tab instead of all of this. Just make this bigger. So in order to integrate Bootstrap, there are many ways to integrate Bootstrap in your application. If it's just a static HTML website like the one we're building, just something as simple as integrating this link here for the CSS and these links here for their JavaScript dependencies, it will be more than enough. In some occasions, they offer you the ability to download Bootstrap into your application and then service it in here in your files from your root as downloaded files. That is helpful, or most commonly seen in situations where it's not always a good thing to do an external reference to a file that is not service in your own server. Something with security could be an issue for that, so things like that. There are so many different ways, so many different reasons that your project may have vest on your requirements. So if your project, the project you're working on says, well, sorry, but we can't have any external reference to another website, and everything that we use has to live within the inside the application, then sure, then you need to download it and put it in there. However, this is not the only way you can download something into your site and display it. If you're working with a JavaScript framework such as React or Angular or Vue or anything that uses the Node.js package manager, npm, then with npm or even Bower, you can service or install all of these packages for Bootstrap and whatever you need from npm or from Bower, and then use them from there. But we're not going to explain that in this video because we're not going to be using npm here. And further in other tutorials we will be doing that, and if I have to make a tutorial specifically for npm or Bower, then I will do so also. But this time, just for the sake of doing something very simple, we're just going to do a regular reference to an external JavaScript or an external CSS. What I mean by external is that this, for example, is not an external reference. This is a reference to a path that is included inside your root. So it's an internal reference. However, this here is an external reference because it's referencing another website altogether. So anytime that your website is going to read the CSS to style your page, it's going to leave your site in order to fetch those classes, and then asynchronously they will be rendered in your site. So let's go ahead and add it. Actually, you know what, I can just click copy and it already copies it. excuse me, and I'm going to put that above right here. This is probably where you guys I didn't specify this earlier, so you probably, some of you probably already did it down here, you know, in this section here, and you know, it's a common mistake. It's not a big deal. So if you did, just go ahead and move it to the top, not to the top, but above this style sheet, and then just leave a little space there just in case you ever need to add another one in the middle. You'll know that this space right here will tell you, you know, just kind of leave this at the bottom. The reason why we're leaving this at the bottom is because the browser is going to read your document exactly like you would read a book, line by line, all the way down. So if you have some styles here in the Bootstrap style sheet that make your H1 tags or whatever in blue, right? But you want them to be red, you're gonna specify that you want that in red in your regular style CSS file here. So in order for that to be overwritten in order for that to overwrite the blue, you need to have it after, so that way when the browser reads it, it will come through here, it will read H1s need to be color blue, and then it will read yours and says, oh, never mind, H1s need to be color red. Make sense? Okay, so moving along, and I'm gonna copy all of these JavaScript here, and now I'm gonna put those same exact thought process as I mentioned here. I'm gonna put them here above my main JS because I want these to be read first. I want these to be read first, and then I want my main JavaScript to overwrite anything that I want to overwrite here. Okay, remember what I said earlier or before, this scripts right here will need to be down in the bottom of that body because you want the website to display all of their styles and the style sheets and elements, and then run the scripts. If by any reason this gives you some kind of problem that you may need to move your jQuery reference here to the top, that's okay. You can, certain ones you can move to the top and have them run first, but ideally that's not what you really need. Ideally you want them to run in the bottom. Sometimes you need them in the top, for example on things that need to show up in a certain way when the page loads, and the only way that that is defined is in the JavaScript. If you have something built within your page here that is going to render on the browser on any specific way that is defined in a JavaScript, then you need to have that above it before it renders, so that runs, so that way that can run first, and then your element, and everything will be fine. Okay, alright, so we're gonna go ahead and move along here. Now we don't need this anymore, so I'm just gonna move this out of here because we already did that. So now let's see what happened here. Do you notice how this looks here? So if I go ahead and save, now you see how this changed. And the reason why this changed is because now you just successfully integrated Bootstrap, and now Bootstrap is affecting your site, but the red remains. All of the other styles, all of the other stuff changed, but the red remains. Why? Because you specifically told your application that you want it to be red, so you overrode the color. Without that, if I go ahead and comment it, which that's how you comment the line so it doesn't render without having to delete it, you just basically press Control backslash or Command backslash. So if I do that, it would just be black, because that's the way that Bootstrap, says it. It should be black until you otherwise define it in a different color. So I'm just gonna Control Z that to undo, save again, leave it red. Alright, so actually, you know what, I am going to keep this in the screen because I do want to talk a little bit about some of the Bootstrap stuff here that you're gonna see. Okay, so let's explain some stuff here, and specifically in the Bootstrap Grid, because this is what's most important about Bootstrap, is the ability to render things on the screen on a responsive design. So if I go to Bootstrap and Layout Grid, and you're welcome to read through all of the documentation here, and its documentation is going to show you a lot and explain a lot that I don't have time to explain in the video. So I'm just gonna go over quickly over a couple of things that you're going to see in the project, but it's suggested that you will go and read as much as you can from Bootstrap here if you want to become fluent with this type of framework. So the grid works on a specific relationship between classes. So here we have a container class with a row class, a container that wraps all of it, then a row that also wraps everything else inside it, and then a column SM that wraps each column. And then inside of each column I have this text here, which is this one, and then this text here, which is this one, and then this one is this one. And you notice how I have 3 different columns that are spread evenly across the screen. Whenever you put column SM without any type of number next to it, you're basically telling the browser that you want all of these elements to display next to each other in the exact same width, no matter what the size of the browser it is. So you notice how the browser changes size, but they are evenly moving across the browser, and that helps when you want to make something responsive and you want things to be fluid with the size of the screen. The container, however, is what centers this entire block in your site, so it's not flushed against the screen, so it's kind of in the middle. And then row decides where you're going to put all of these 3 columns in line inside the same row, and then if I add another row underneath of here where it ends, then it would create whatever I add to that row underneath here instead of next to it. It will add another row. So it's pretty self-explanatory. This is a row and these are columns. So it's kind of like a tabular effect, but we're not using tables, we're using a normal ambiguous div container instead. In specific situations, you will need to define specific sizes, such as, let me find one that is a little bit easier to understand. Alright, so like these 2 here, you notice how these 3 right here, because they don't have a number like this, these 3 right here, they don't have a number, therefore they spread out evenly across the screen. But what if you need something to be divided in this way, that you need a lot more space here and some the leftover here? You can divide it by this, by putting an 8 at the end and a 4 at the end. Whatever you do, they need to add to 12. So it's 8 and 4, or 6 and 6 if you want it to be spread in the middle, or 9 and 3 if you want it to be a little bit further this way. Or if you have 3 of them, then you need it to be 4, 4, 4, so they can spread completely into 4. If you want 4 of them, then it's 3. Then you need, 4 of these, and then each one needs to have a 3, 3, and then the next one 3, and then the next one 3, and then you have 4 columns, each one divided into 3 to add up to 12. Or you could do, like I said, just don't put a number on it. Just leave it at the size here, and then it will spread it evenly. Now the thing that you have to remember is that this SM right here is basically targeting a specific viewport. So this will show in a 3 column right here, inline, on an inline 3 column spread up to this size here, up to this size. And the sizes are defined above here, I think. Here, so in DSM, which is 540 pixels, right? Anything below 40 pixels would always go across the screen and become full width. Okay, so just to show you, I'm gonna come back down to where I was. We were here, right? So you notice here, now if I go here below, let me go ahead and put that on the side here so you can see. I want you to pay attention on the screen up here to the size of the width, how it's going down to 1200 something. You see how it's still, I'm at 1153. This is still 3 because it's not a 540 yet. And then 1900 is still on a 3 splitter or a 3 spread, and I'm at 800 right now, as you can see up here, and it's still not noticed. As soon as I get to almost there we go. So now that I got to the point where I need to be, the SM no longer works, and it doesn't spread it into 3 anymore because it went below the SM. It's now running on a lower size that the SM is instructed to run. So at this point it's going to run as a full width, and it's going to stack up on top of each other and run responsively as it should. So this will create a lot of easier ways to create responsive design that you don't have to do it from scratch. So the headache is not going to be as much as it would if you had to create all this from scratch. Another thing that so this right here, this is going to take you a little bit of time to get the hang of. So don't you're gonna see me do some of it in the project, but don't get discouraged if you don't get it right away. It's gonna take some time, but you'll get it. Okay, the more you mess around with it, you almost learn to learn it by memory, that you don't have to come over here and remember what these classes are. You'll know. Now, some components are already built from scratch by Bootstrap that you can just automatically grab and put in your application, and they're here inside of components, and they're all explained on how to use them. So if you wanted to use an alert box like any of these, you can just grab here, copy that, or copy this one if you want the second one, the secondary one, which is this one, like that. Some of these that you're going to be using in the project is the Navbar, which is the navigation, and this shows how a menu will work with a search form, and you will see this in effect in the project. And you see how the navigation, after it goes into a responsive design, it becomes this kind of navigation. So it's already built for you to work that way. And obviously I just have it designed in a different style, but it's essentially the same thing. This right here is the logo, which it wouldn't be Navbar, it will be your actual logo, which you will put here where Navbar is. This is where you will put your logo. So I will explain all this in the project. I just wanted to show you that all of this code is available for you, and you can just grab it from there and use it depending on which Navbar you want to use, and then just use these as a ground to start, and then you can build up from here. So this will give you a good starting point. So the Navbar is a good one to go over and to study further. The buttons are almost something that you can get away from. So go over this buttons right here, study them, and read some of the documentation, because you're always going to need to use buttons all the time. Input groups, that's another one that is important, because almost every website has a form of some kind, whether it is to take a subscription for a newsletter, or contact form, anything. So get accustomed to how to use these controls, ready controls and checkboxes and things like that, and how to do a regular form, custom form selects and things like that. Okay, so I'm not going to explain all of that all of that Bootstrap contains, because we could be here all day. And then right here in the utility classes, this is always something that you kind of want to, you don't have to remember these by heart. Eventually the time will come where if you use Bootstrap enough, you get to remember these classes, and so it'll come with time. But if you need a utility class, they're all going to be here, and it's good to know them. So like colors right here, for example, if you need a color to run in your primary color, the class text primary right here would turn it into the primary color that you have defined. In this case, it's blue. If you want something to say delete or something like that, and you want it to be red, so it's easily seen in the screen, the text danger screen right at the text danger class, utility class here, will make anything inside red. So all you have to do is use, whatever element you're using that you want to make red, name it whatever you want to name it here. So let's say this says delete, and then just make sure that your class has text danger, and then anything that you have in here like delete or don't click here, anything like that, it will say red. If you want something to be reversed, so instead of if you want something like it says text light, make it white, then you use text light. Just make sure that you're not using it on a white background, because you're not gonna be able to see it. Okay, same thing with text white and text light kind of work similar. Okay, so that's again, I'm not gonna go over every single utility class there is, so you have to do some of this on your own. That will be part of your your own time to spend on this. Alright, so let's go ahead and put this aside now, and let's go to the HTML, and now we're going to actually start building some of the stuff. So I'm going to put this script on further down the line, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this code that I added here, because we're not going to need this anymore. We're actually going to start building the application. Alright, sorry about that. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be building the navigation for the site, right? We're going to start building the main components, because a site without a navigation, well, it's kind of weird, right? It is. So I'm going to click this here to make him smaller, so it doesn't convolute my view, and it doesn't mess me up. And then inside my body here, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, I'm gonna go to my navigation, Bootstrap actually. So I'm gonna go to Bootstrap and go to components and look for the Navbar. So in here in the Navbar, I'm going to grab the navigation that I'm going to use. So I'm just gonna go with the first one here and copy that, and I'm gonna put that in there. So that's my initial I'm gonna go ahead and minimize that. So obviously I'm not gonna use all of this, but let's save and render it just in case so you can see it. Here we go. So you have your navigation. So let's put that a little bigger so you can see it also, like that. So here you have your entire navigation, but obviously this is not what we're building. It's not going to look like this. So we're going to have to slim this down a little bit and take some stuff off. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mess around with the part that contains the logo. So for the logo, what I have is a regular logo that says fitness and lifestyle. Now I have this fitness and lifestyle designed in a particular way, so I'm going to wrap this into an h1 tag. Actually, let me just do it with code instead so you can see it. Okay, and then inside the h1 tag, I'm gonna now move this and put it in there. Okay, now if you remember, I had the fitness and lifestyle in different colors, so I'm going to make some use of some classes that I have already done, and I'm going to create a span tag with class highlight. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because I have already some of these classes already built, which I'm going to copy inside of a style CSS later. Now inside of that fitness tag, inside of that span tag, I'm gonna drag this fitness and put it in there. just take the space away from that, and then I still have my H1 tag wrapping everything else. Okay, so if I hit save, now I have this here. Now this looks like it just did a red code, and that's pretty much it. And well, that's because basically we haven't done much to it yet. So let's go to the CSS, and first of all, we're gonna get rid of this so it doesn't make all my H1 tags red anymore. So you see how it's deleted. And before I go any further, actually, I want to set this up here, and just go ahead and copy this, and I'll give you time to take your time and pause the video and type this into your application. Okay, I'm hoping that you already got it done. Okay, and actually, you know what, this will probably take a while, so just leave that there. I'm gonna go ahead and put all of my CSS here. There we go, and I'm gonna hit save. There we go. So I'm gonna put all of the CSS in here, and I know this is a lot, so what I want you to do, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to add this style specifically to the comments, and in the comments I'm gonna need you to go and install this, grab this style sheet and then add it to your own style sheet, so that way you have time to write all of this, and you don't have to wait for me to to explain line by line what all of this means, because then we could be here for a long time. And it's easier if you can just grab all this code that is in the style sheet and then copy and paste it in your own style sheet, and then we can move further from here. So I'm going to stop this video here then, so that way you have time to do all this, and then we'll continue in the next one. Okay, all right, look in the comments. Okay guys, see ya.